State for Wales, Mr Ranil Jayawardena.
Number 1, sir.
Minister Nigel Adams.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And can I start firstly by congratulating coach Warren Gatland, the captain Alun Wyn-Jones on the most magnificent victory in Cardiff on Saturday. As a proud Englishman, Mr Speaker, it was a joy to watch the game. And can I say what no better way to kick off Wales in London Week, where we champion everything and celebrate everything that is great about Wales, including their rugby team. The Office of Secretary of State for Wales works closely with the Department for International Trade on promoting Wales's trading opportunities, from trade missions to his work with the Trade Commissioners and sitting on the Board of Trade. My right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Wales, is continually working to create potential for both Welsh exports and for foreign direct investment projects to come to Wales.
Mr Ranil Jayawardena.
My honourable friend for that response, and of course I associate myself with his remarks that although I preferred the first half. May I just say that many people will have used the M4 this weekend, but it's given the potential the M4 has for international trade for Wales and indeed for the rest of the country. Can he tell me what progress has been made towards honouring the commitment from the 1960s to build the M31 from Reading down to Gatwick Airport via the M3?
Well, I know my honourable friend is a great champion for this project, and rightly so, and he's right to raise this important issue. The Department of Transport recognises the importance for cross-border connectivity. It has been gathering evidence to inform the second road investment strategy, RAS2, which will govern investment in England's motorways and major A roads between 20 to 25. Economic growth is one of the 5 stated key aims for RAS2, and will play a part in the appraisal of schemes which will be published in 2019.
Mr Albert Owen.
Much, Mr Speaker. Can I join the Minister in congratulating the Welsh rugby team on their excellent victory on course for the Grand Slam this year? Can I say to the Minister that he will be aware of Rayhow Plastics in my constituency, internationally trading for over 40 years, has announced its closure and concentrating its business now on the European mainland. Will his department work with the Welsh Government, myself and local government to try and retain these important trading jobs? They're international jobs and we need them on Anglesey.
Absolutely. I have a sneaky feeling that rugby might be a running theme throughout these questions, Mr Speaker, but we do recognise the importance of Rayhow as an important employer to the region and on Anglesey, and we will work closely with the honourable member and the company to achieve the best possible outcome, and most importantly for those important staff that work there.
James.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. There are many excellent international trading companies in North Wales, but in order to continue to thrive, they need access to the most modern digital infrastructure. Can my honourable friend say what discussions he is having with the North Wales Economic Ambition Board to ensure that growth deal funding is targeted towards improving digital connectivity?
Well, I know my right honourable friend is indeed a great champion for North Wales, and I can confirm I recently met with the Economic Ambition Board to discuss the progress they are making on finalising their proposition to utilise the £120 million that we have allocated to the deal and also the Welsh Government have allocated to the deal. Digital infrastructure is one of the current underpinning projects, but we have set the challenge to the region to go even further and be even more ambitious about what this project can achieve for the region by working closely with a range of partners, including the private sector.
Short questions and short answers, please. Anne Clwyd.
Speaker, Jim Callaghan, Labour Prime Minister, brought thousands of jobs to Ford in South Wales. Why is a Tory Prime Minister taking those jobs away?
Minister.
Well, I thank the honourable lady for her question, but I would politely remind the honourable lady that we have record employment in Wales now. There have been tough commercial decisions in recent months, particularly from Hitachi, but I would point to the good economic news in Wales, in particular those record job numbers.
Train.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Dydd Gwyl Dewi Hapus, Mr Speaker, for Friday. Can I just pay my good wishes to Sam on the sad loss of Paul Flynn. This is the first time I've had a chance to do that. He was a great man. He actually stood in my constituency in 1974. In January, Mr Speaker, Dyson announced the relocation of their HQ to Singapore. Hitachi ended its interest in Wilver, and Airbus said it was prepared to leave Wales in the event of a no-deal Brexit. The government's handling of Brexit has been described as a disgrace by Airbus's commanders and a state of total confusion by tycoon Sir Martin Sorrell. Can I ask the Minister, what type of message does this send out to international investors and traders about trading opportunities in Wales?
Minister. What I would remind the honourable gentleman, and if I might again politely say he's been a little selective with the examples he's using, and I would point him to the employment figures, where the real figures show that foreign direct investment last year created 3,107 new Welsh jobs. That's a 20% increase. I understand why he might want to paint a gloomy picture. And with regard to Airbus, they've made it perfectly clear they don't want no deal, they want a deal. And the best thing that the honourable gentleman and his party could do is support the deal when it comes before this House.
Angela Crawley.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and with your agreement I will also say that this is the first Welsh question since the sad passing of our friend and colleague Paul Flynn that leaves a significant space on the backbench for the time being in the Chamber. The Government is engaging extensively with the Welsh Government in preparing the European Union Withdrawal Agreement Bill. This includes bilateral engagements and meetings of the joint ministerial committees.
Angela Crawley.
The National Assembly for Wales backed the Plaid Cymru motion calling for work to begin immediately on preparing for a public vote. Now, a recent poll by YouGov also found that more Welsh voters backed a people's vote than not. If the Secretary of State is truly Wales' voice in Westminster, as he so boldly claims, can he outline the preparations he has pressed the Prime Minister for to facilitate a people's vote?
Well, I'm grateful to the Honourable Lady for her question, but I would politely point out to the Honourable Lady that Wales voted to leave the European Union even in stronger numbers than the rest of the UK. We have an obligation to act on the instruction that comes from that referendum, but in doing so we will continue to work closely with the Welsh Government to ensure and secure a smooth and orderly exit.
Christina Rees.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I first met Paul Flynn in 1980, and he was absolutely inspirational to me then and continued to be a source of inspiration throughout the many years I had the privilege to know him. Will the Secretary of State guarantee that the Welsh Government will be fully represented in any negotiations with the EU that impact on devolved competence and policy?
I'm grateful to the Honourable Lady for her question, and I would also say that the UK Government has been open and transparent in its dealing with the UK Government in terms of the representation, in terms of engagement. In fact, the Welsh Government sit on the EUXT Preparedness Committee, which shows and demonstrates our positive engagement. I'm only disappointed the same privilege and opportunity has not been extended to the UK Government in order to sit on their similar committee.
Christina Rees.
Well, I thank the Secretary of State for his answer, but does he realise, does he understand that if the UK Government negotiates free trade agreements, for example with the USA, which forces hormone-injected beef and chlorinated chicken on the people of Wales, without the legislative consent of the elected Welsh Government, it will trigger a major constitutional crisis? Is he prepared to risk that?
Well, first of all, Mr Speaker, I don't accept the basis of the question, but the Honourable Lady raises an important point, and we will, of course, continue our warm, constructive, positive engagement with all of the devolved administrations, and our working with the Welsh Government on leaving the European Union has proved fruitful. So far, we've laid 120 SIs on behalf of the Welsh Government at their request. So in terms of future trade agreements, we will continue to work with them constructively in the interest of the whole of the the UK. Clearly, my interest and their interest will be to defend the Welsh interests, and I plan to continue to work with them on that positive basis.
And number 3, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And with your permission, I will answer questions 3 and 8 together. I meet with counterparts in the Welsh Government on a regular basis, including Baroness Alun Morgan just last Monday, to discuss a range of policy areas. A responsible government prepares for every eventuality, including no deal, and will continue to work together on operational readiness through the joint ministerial committees.
Gavin, Newlands. Speaker, that's all very well, but the Government's no-deal assessment made clear that the impact of a no-deal Brexit on the UK's food and drink sector would be most damaging in Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, where the sector comprises over 5% of these economies, compared to just 1.38% in England. How can this Government therefore claim that it's a partnership of equal nations when it stands ready to ruin the economies of 3 purely in the interests of Tory party unity?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is quite selective in terms of the data in which he points to, but he's highlighted one scenario. But if he's happy to take the message so clearly from the sector in which he's highlighted, that same sector encouraged him to support the Prime Minister's deal with the European Union. And when that bill meaningful vote returns to Parliament, I hope he will heed that message then.
Mr. Chapman.
Will the Minister recognise that 92% of Welsh lamb goes for EU export? Welsh hill farmers have said that if a no-deal Brexit goes ahead, their industry will be decimated and wiped out. Have you confirmed by his own evidence produced last night in his economic evidence that was published? If that's his own analysis, will the Secretary of State for Wales actually act responsibly and make sure that Welsh lamb is protected?
Mr. Speaker, I'd similarly say to the honourable member, absolutely we recognise the importance of Welsh agriculture as all of the important employment sectors and economic sectors in Wales. But I would say to the honourable member that the National Farmers Union and NFU Cymru were strong supporters of the deal with the European Union, and therefore if he's happy to repeat their message here today, I hope he's happy to react on their message when it comes to voting on the meaningful vote in this House.
I, right honourable friend, agree that agriculture is a very important industry for Britain, but also for Wales. And as has already been outlined, Welsh lamb particularly, what measures could be taken in the event of a no-deal Brexit? Because clearly the deal would be the first option, but if there was a no-deal Brexit, how would those difficulties be overcome?
Well, my honourable friend, Mr. Speaker, raises an important point, and of course agriculture is an extremely important part of the Welsh economy and is disproportionately important compared to the rest of the UK. And of course we would act in a way that would protect the interests of that economy to ensure that those jobs are there for the long-term future in spite of any short-term challenge.
Regardless or not of whether we have a no-deal Brexit, is my right honourable friend aware, I'm sure he probably is, that it's coming up to the 50th anniversary of the investiture of the Prince of Wales? How can we employ, in that sense of the word, the Prince of Wales, soft power and all that to promote Wales and the Welsh economy?
Irrespective of membership of or departure from the European Union, with which matter we wouldn't want to involve him in any way. Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, my right honourable friend makes an important point. As we leave the European Union, there is an opportunity to look outwards, and the Prince of Wales is a great champion of Wales and brings about significant soft power. So we rightly recognised him last year by renaming the second Severn crossing the Prince of Wales Bridge, and I would pay tribute to Her Majesty, who next week will host a reception to mark the 50 years since the Prince of Wales was named such.
The voice of Ogmore will be heard, but I see a great phalanx of men standing and only one female member. Jo Stevens must be heard.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Speaker. Every sector of the Welsh economy is going to be damaged by the UK leaving the EU. So will the Secretary of State for Wales confirm that he will be voting to rule out no deal?
Yeah. Well, Mr. Speaker, I will be voting for a deal with the European Union because the honourable lady will have an interest in a whole range of sectors, be they from agriculture, be they from automotive, and all of those sectors have strongly supported the Prime Minister's deal with the European Union. I'm disappointed that the honourable lady voted against that, making no deal more likely.
Elmore!
One of the ways in which the Welsh Secretary could start doing his job, providing support for the Welsh economy, is confirming how the Shared Prosperity Fund will work beyond 2020. So Treasury Ministers won't give me an answer, Bay's Ministers won't, so is it time he stepped and did his job and explained to the House how the Prosperity Fund will work?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to preempt our consultation, which very shortly will go out to consultation. But I would say candidly to the honourable member that he, I'm sure, will recognise that after more than £4 billion, approaching £5 billion in EU structural funds have been spent over the last 17 years in the Welsh economy. Does he honestly believe that we've got the best value from that? And is there not a better opportunity to deliver better value for money for the taxpayer?
But the question was a rhetorical one. It requires no answer, and indeed it would be inappropriate, as the Secretary of State knows. Tom Purseglove.
Question number 4, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since the referendum, I've been talking to stakeholders the length and breadth of Wales on the implications of EU exit. This includes through discussions I've had with my expert panel and Economic Advisory Board, which met again last month.
I'm very grateful to the Secretary of State for that answer, but what steps are his department taking to specifically support small businesses reliant on tourism in Wales?
Well, my honourable friend is a great champion of his constituency, and I've got no doubt that people in Corby and East Northamptonshire will want to visit Wales on a regular basis. And it's a great opportunity to highlight Wales Week in London, which has gone global this year, with Wales Week being held in New York, Washington, and in all parts of the UK. And I'd be interested in seeing what we could do in his constituency for next year.
Restaurant business is under threat because of this Brexit chaos. His Polish and Hungarian staff who've been with him from the start have left, and the pound is plummeting, causing huge challenge to him. Does the Secretary of State for Wales believe this chaotic Brexit is really making Wales a more attractive place for businesses?
Well, I'd say to the honourable lady there is absolutely no reason why those employees should have left, because we have respected their rights, and I just only hope and wish that as we continue to negotiate, that all of those rights of UK nationals living in the European Union will be respected in exactly the same way. But the honourable lady is also a member who voted against the Prime Minister's deal with the European Union, and by doing so she is making a no deal far more likely. So I would encourage her to look objectively at the data and to support the meaningful vote when he comes back.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I ask my right honourable friend what discussions he has had with the Secretary of State for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy about relocating the resources that are concentrated on Victoria Street into Wales and into Scotland?
My honourable friend makes an important point, and my right honourable friend, the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, already has an agenda to take as many jobs out of Whitehall across the rest of the UK on an ongoing basis, and leaving the European Union will bring new responsibilities, and I think there's an opportunity for his constituency, and I will be seeking to play my part to ensure that Wales benefits too.
Thank you, Speaker. In respect of Welsh business preparations for Brexit, can the Secretary of State tell me how many of the hundreds of government Brexit work streams have been allocated exclusively or primarily to the Wales office?
Well, the honourable member will be aware that the Wales office sits and acts right across the whole of government, but my prime lead is with the Welsh Government. We've now ensured that they sit on the European Union Exit Preparedness Committee, and as I mentioned earlier, I only hope that they will similarly invite a UK Government representative to sit on their equivalent committee.
Nick Thomas-Symonds.
Number 5, Mr. Speaker.
Minister Adams.
The Government understands that police demand is changing and becoming increasingly complex. That's why, after speaking to all police forces in England and Wales, we've provided a comprehensive funding settlement which increased total investment in the police by over £460 million in 2018-19.
Nick Thomas-Symonds.
By 2019-20, Gwent Police will have seen a 26% cut in its core government grant as compared to 2010-11. Why does this government keep making it more difficult for Gwent Police to keep my constituents safe?
Well, I would just remind the honourable gentleman that the 2019-20 settlement provides total funding of up to £14 billion. and it's an increase of up to 970 million compared to the previous year. And I would also politely remind him that the party opposite voted against that increased funding.
Evans. Number 6, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the industrial strategy provides a platform for the Welsh economy to thrive, and we've been working closely with the Welsh Government to ensure we make the most of the opportunities available. We are already delivering a wide range of projects in Wales, such as the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund, for which Wales is scoring well above its population share.
Mr. Speaker, if you allow, I would like to pay tribute to my parliamentary next-door neighbour, Paul Flynn. The unique, unforgettable parliamentarian he was will be missed by all this House. But I wonder if the Secretary of State is concerned by the news that once Honda stopped production in Swindon, the Welsh Automotive Forum says 12 companies based in Wales will be affected by that decision. If he is worried, what is he going to do for those SMEs to open new markets?
I think the honourable member raises an important point, and I was in Japan last week when the news was received by the ambassador in Japan, and it's important to recognise this has nothing to do with Brexit. This is to do with changing market habits and the change of approach that Honda are bringing about. We've already been in touch with the Wales Automotive Forum. We're engaging positively with them. He's right about the number of companies, but the exposure is more limited than initially might suggest.
Mr. Speaker, in terms of industrial strategy, does the Secretary of State think that the chronic M4 congestion around Newport, which snarled up the England rugby team coach last Friday, was part of a cunning plan to give Wales the edge, or just a consequence of 20 years of failure of a Welsh Labour government that can't build a road?
My right honourable friend is absolutely right, and even the Welsh coach Warren Gatland pointed out to Eddie Jones that he would never have come through Newport at that time of day because of the congestion around Newport. Now, this might be light-hearted, but the reality is it's causing serious reputational damage to Wales. The plan is made available. It's got a positive recommendation. The money's available from the Treasury. I wish the Welsh Government would just get on and deliver it.
Is Samuel Roberts? Sure, the House will join me in welcoming the fact that the serendipity of the alignment of stars by which, in every year ending in a 9, since 1949, Wales has beat England. Mr. Speaker, will the North Wales growth deal projects, now that Hitachi have pulled the plug on Wilver, what is he doing to ensure additional funding, specifically infrastructure investment, over and above the present 120 million committed by his government?
Well, the honourable lady raises an important point, but I would say that the Hitachis have paused the project and they are maintaining the development consent order, so certainly they have not pulled the plug. And when I met the chairman of Hitachi last week, they were keen to continue to engage. But I would say to the honourable lady that we will look open-mindedly at the North Wales growth deal, but of course it's a matter for local authorities and businesses to make bids to me in order for me to consider in due course.
Specifically in relation to infrastructure, what assessment has he made of the potential use of Crown Estate revenue income from Wales or other Treasury funds to support the development of energy infrastructure, and specifically for developing the tidal stream energy sector in Pembrokeshire, Llŷn and Ynys Cybi?
The honourable lady raises some excellent examples of the sorts of projects that could well gain support, be it through the North Wales growth deal or the Mid or the South Swansea City deal. These are the sort of projects that I'd like to look at and to explore, but of course they are bottom up. But working with the honourable lady and with local partners, I'll be happy to see what we can progress.
7, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. We have regular discussions with Welsh Government on cross-border roads, including the proposed A48 bypass around Chepstow. We know a bypass could improve journey times between Chepstow and Gloucestershire, as well as reduce air pollution, and we look forward to working with Welsh Government to deliver this vital piece of infrastructure.
Davis! Speaker, there are times when a drive through Chepstow resembles rush hour in Lagos or Mexico City. Will my right honourable friends therefore do everything they possibly can to encourage the local authorities in Gloucester, the Welsh Government and the Ministry of Transport to work with Monmouthshire Council to deliver that bypass as soon as possible?
Well, there is no greater champion and voice for Chepstow than my honourable friend, and this government is dedicated to improve transport infrastructure across Wales, including a new relief road. We've abolished the tolls over the Severn, and I know from personal experience on Saturday that Chepstow could do with a bypass.
Ainsty, Lucas. Well, I simply say to the... No, order, resume your seat. I say to the honourable gentleman, he's a fine man and Slough is a very good place, but it's a long way from Chepstow or Gloucestershire. If the inquiry is one sentence and it relates either to Chepstow or to Gloucestershire, I hear him. If it's about Slough, remain seated. Blurt it out, man.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In terms of reducing journey times, the Western Rail link to Heathrow will significantly do so between Wales and Heathrow Airport. So when will the Western Rail link to Heathrow finally be built, since the government committed to it in 2012?
Well, my honourable friend, who has been incredibly creative to get his question in under Chepstow, will be pleased to hear that we're continuing to engage with the Department for Transport on this vital project.
Greg Hands.
Number 9, Mr. Speaker.
Well, again, there is no stronger voice than Wales than my honourable friend, who has a long-standing interest in Wales. I have met with the Minister for Defence Procurement yesterday to discuss this F-35 contract. This recent announcement puts Wales right at the centre of the global F-35 partnership. It's the largest defence programme in history, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, it's a great pleasure to visit the F-35 factory in Fort Worth in the summer of 2016. And of course, the F-35 has got a huge UK content to it. So would my honourable friend agree with me that these contracts show the immense contribution being made by the Welsh defence industry to the UK economy and exports overall?
The aerospace industry, defence industry are in very good health in Wales. In financial year 2017-18, the UK government spent £960 million with the Welsh defence industry and commerce. That's up from £946 million. This supports an estimated 6,300 jobs in Wales, and this £500 million F-35 contract is to be welcomed right across this House.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, will the Minister meet with aerospace businesses like Tritech, Magellan and Solvay in Wrexham to ensure that in the event of a no-deal Brexit, we maximise spend within the UK to benefit our businesses?
I certainly would agree to meet with the aerospace industry. I've already been and visited a number of companies. I'm also committed to holding a round table on this very subject, and I'm more than happy to meet with my honourable friend as well to discuss this further.
Gareth Thomas! You have a question on the paper, man.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Given the huge challenges that the steel industry and customs, the steel industry and car manufacturers face in Wales as well as in the rest of the UK, even at this late stage, wouldn't it be better if the Secretary of State and the rest of the government committed Britain to stay in the customs union?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member, in raising this issue on the European Union, I would also say voted against the Prime Minister's deal. That makes no deal far more likely. The only way to secure a smooth, orderly exit from the European Union would be to support the Prime Minister's deal when the meaningful vote comes back to this House.
Diggy is conscious that he does have a question on the paper, and he can have it. Ben Lake, Mr. Speaker. Minister.
I thank the honourable friend for his work on this very important issue. The UK government does not anticipate that RNLI's decision to replace the all-weather lifeboat with the Atlantic 85 vessel will have an impact on their capability to coordinate search and rescue in Cardigan Bay.
For his answer, he will be aware that the decision to remove the all-weather lifeboat from Newquay has caused considerable concern in Ceredigion and further afield. Could I ask him to again raise this matter with the Department for Transport and press for detailed reassurances that the removal will not diminish search and rescue capabilities in Cardigan Bay?
I'm more than happy to work with them, but not only with the RNLI, but I'm very happy to meet with the honourable gentleman to discuss his concerns to ensure that there is proper and correct lifeboat coverage in Cardigan Bay.
Thank you. Order.